Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is the John Woodard Show. Thank you for watching. We have with us the distinct pleasure of interviewing Lindalyn Kakadelis of the North Carolina Charter Schools Coalition. In these days and times, with all that's going on in education in this country, alternative education is on the minds of a lot of people. So the timing of this interview is extremely good, and thank you very much for joining us, Linda. I appreciate it so much.
Thank you, John. It's my pleasure to be here today.
Tell me about your organization and when it was founded.
Thank you, John. The North Carolina Coalition for Charter Schools was founded in 2018. It is a C6 organization, which means we only deal with advocacy issues. Many folks don't realize how charter schools are very, very fragile in our state. There's 7 states that do not have charter school laws even, but North Carolina's charter school law was passed in 1996. We started the organization with a gentleman called Richard Vinroot. Richard was a former mayor of Charlotte and also did over 30 lawsuits charter schools had with local funding. And so Richard realized the importance of charter schools having a trade organization that only dealt with 2 issues. One was funding and the other one was autonomy, and specifically focusing on policy at the General Assembly, at the State Board of Education, the Charter School Advisory Board, and the Department of Public Instruction. So that's what we do.
These days, with critical race theory and so many other things in the school system today, and the lockdowns from the COVID virus and so forth, that really puts a lot of strain on alternative forms of education, such as parochial schools and charter schools. My understanding is that the lines are to get their children into charter schools are the wait time is lengthy. There's not enough schools and way too many kids. Is that your experience?
Yes, it is. I mean, we have across the state, there are 65,000 children on wait lists to just get into charter schools. Now, charter schools are very different from your private schools. Your private schools are under the Division of Non-Public Education, while charter schools are public schools. We are chartered by the State Board of Education, and a nonprofit board fills out the application and then is granted that charter through the state board. There's 201 charter schools across the state. And I will tell you, John, they vary as much as night and day. The board decides the programming, the mission, the vision of each charter school. And it's very important that parents check out the school because one could be completely different than another.
The education and curriculum, is that consistent with what is done provided in public schools, or is it a different curriculum? Is that decided on an individual basis, or how's that determined?
The state has standards, and that was what I think you had referred to earlier, that people are concerned with the critical race theory involved in those standards. However, the standards are just standards. They're just statements of what a child should know. And then each school can determine the curriculum that it uses to accomplish the standards. Now, the charter schools are held accountable to take the North Carolina end of grade, end of course testing, which is only in reading and math through the 8th grade. And then in high school, it's Math 1, English 2, biology. So right now, there is not a statewide test on any of the social studies standards. So there's much flexibility involved in that particular course.
How many grades does a charter school generally accommodate? K through 12 or something less?
Most charter schools, the majority of them are K-8, but there are, and I don't have the exact number, but quite a few that go through K-12. But it is totally up to the board of the school and the application that they send in, how many, the grade levels that they serve.
I assume that the operators of the charter school have to get the curriculum approved by the state. Is that correct?
No.
Or
no.
they just follow the guidelines and that's it?
That's right. They follow the guidelines. And again, especially in reading and math, the charter schools are held accountable for how well their students perform. In state statute, it's very clear. Charter schools are not under a rule-based accountability model, but they are under a performance-based accountability model. So annually, charter schools report, of course, their academic performance with the growth, but they also have governance, and they have financial, and they have operational expectations that they must meet, or otherwise their charter is revoked and the school is closed down. I tell people often, I believe the most important factor of a charter school is that it can be closed down if it doesn't perform. I had the honor to serve on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education for several terms. And the interesting thing there is we never shut down a school, no matter how many years it was low performing. We just
and you have the ability to fire a teacher that's underperforming in a charter school. You certainly can't do that in a public school.
Well, I usually tell people, John, to literally fire a teacher in the district schools, it would take embezzlement or sexual molestation, and we could get rid of them quickly. Otherwise, if it's just poor teaching, it would take a long time. And you're exactly right. In a charter school, the contract is, a teacher can be let go of tomorrow for poor teaching. And, but again, a charter school is held to a performance-based model. And so they have to be able to release the teacher quickly, or the whole school is shut down.
Here in Elizabeth City, we have one charter school. Is there, these are all individually operated. They are correct. They don't come under the school board, the local or state school board, other than the guidelines. Is that correct?
That's correct. And they're not under your local Board of Education at all. Now, they are under the State Board of Education because that's who grants the charter. But you're correct in their, they have some guidelines, but there is much flexibility in their curriculum and in their teaching methods. You will find everything from very strict phonics-based type reading to whole language reading in some. Again, they're held to the performance-based accountability model. And if their kids don't perform, then the school will be shut down. I will never forget, I also served on the Charter School Advisory Board. And on the advisory board, we handle all the applications. We're an advisory group to the state board. So we look at all the applications, vote on them. We do their renewals, where we interview every year any charter school that's low performing or continual low performing, and that means like 2-3 years in a row. They are brought before the Charter School Advisory Board and asked, what are you doing that's good? What are you doing that you need to change so that you're not low performing again? And I will never forget, there was a charter school that did not give grades. They just did like pass and fail, but didn't even tell the children that whether they passed or failed. They just individualized their education process and method. And I will never forget, they tried that and they came back and they said, one thing we've learned is we need to give grades so that the children are more empowered to do better. And it was one of those,
something to strive for.
Right. It was one of those moments I was going, really? It took you a year to figure that out? but that's what, but that's the ingenuity and the innovation of charter schools. And that's why I tell parents, don't assume all charter schools are the same. Charter schools are extremely different with extremely different missions and visions. And you've got to find one that you approve of and that matches what your family wants to do.
There's some of the arguments against charter schools that it takes money away from the public school system. How do you respond to that?
Well, that's one of the many myths that the left uses or I would call the education blob, the establishment, the bureaucracy. People who make money off education, they don't want any competition. So yes, they say, oh, it drains money from the district schools. Well, it's not true. If the money belongs to the child, then the money follows the child. And you really have to decide which is more important, the system or the student. And we here in charter school land, we believe that the child, the student is more important than the system. And so therefore the money is attached to the child and it goes where the family wants the child to attend, not the zip code where the family lives.
Do you believe in vouchers?
Well, I do. Now, some in the charter school world do not. A little bit about myself is when serving on the Charlotte-Mecklenburg Board of Education, I also had the unique opportunity. This was back in the 90s before opportunity scholarships we had in the state. I had the unique opportunity to serve on the district board to manage $3 million of private money for low-income families to choose private schools. And then I also served on a charter school board all at the same time. And what I liked about it is I was meeting the needs of students. One size does not fit all. And like I said, it was a unique experience, but one I thoroughly enjoyed.
What is the funding that comes from the state has always gone traditionally into the public school big pot. And the public schools are not even accountable to the local governments or in which they operate, and yet the local government's required to furnish the school to house these children. So it seems like a convoluted process at best, but the funding issue, how does that just go from the legislature to the school, or go to the child? Does the parents spend the money to educate the child at the school of their choice? And what about school choice?
Okay. Well, first of all, there are for your public schools. Now, of course, charter schools are considered public schools. They are
Yes.
public schools. And so there are three main funding streams: your federal, your state, and your local funding streams. Your federal and state pretty well goes directly to the charter school for the allotment. Now, North Carolina funds K-12 education through an allotment method, and there's like 32 different allotments and formulas and all of that. They don't really fund a student, they fund systems. And so the charter school at the state level is considered like an individual LEA. And so charter schools receive the same amount of money per student that the state receives. However, the local funding is a little bit different. And it's really interesting because somebody said it's kind of like trying to fit a round peg in a square hole. We fund districts with allotments, and then you fund charter schools per pupil. Your local funding comes from your county commission, and your county commissioners decide annually that the school in North Carolina, the school system presents a budget to the county commission, and the county commission then funds a lump sum to the school system. Now that's outside of facilities. Facilities is a separate budget, and usually a bond package is passed to do facilities. But your county can give supplementary funds to the teachers. It depends on what the county commission, and it depends a lot of times if it's a low wealth or more wealthy county, how much money they can send to the schools. But that is a lump sum. And then from that, the systems decide what is shared with the charter schools and what is not. Now that is where the funding lawsuits came about in the late 2000s, 2015, 16, 17. There were about 30 funding lawsuits around the state because your local boards did not share all the money that they were supposed to with their counties. I mean, with their charter schools. Right now, charter schools get about 73 cents on the dollar of that local funding, and they don't get any facilities money. County commissioners, sometimes they don't realize how much charter schools save them because charter schools, their facility has to come out of their operating funds, not a special bond package. So charter schools do a whole lot more with a whole lot less.
Well, that's typical I mean, it's while it is still under the public school, part of the public school system, it's operated as more or less as a private business in the sense that you don't have the constraints over teacher hiring and firing. You don't have problems that you do in public schools with teachers teaching kids all kinds of wild things and everything. I mean, just the other day, I was doing a little research on critical race theory, and I came upon an article that was written back in January. I didn't see it. Nobody else I knew of had ever seen it either. But the article headline was why the largest teacher group in North Carolina is waging war against parents. And when I read it, I was so astonished by what I read that I went back and read it again. The NCAE has a president who is affiliated with Black Lives Matter, but more importantly, the vice president of NCAE is an avowed revolutionary that is affiliated with Liberation Road, which is a Chinese-supported organization. That would never happen in a charter school environment, would it?
Well, first of all, the NCAE has been, it's the affiliate of the NEA. Many people say, well, North Carolina doesn't have unions because we're a right to work state. Well, if it's affiliated with a union, it acts like a union, it's a union. And so
it walks and quacks that like a duck, it's a duck.
Right. So, I mean, the NCAE is your NEA union here in North Carolina. It's extremely left. Teachers have the ability, whether you're in a district school or charter school, to join another organization called the Classroom Teachers Association of North Carolina. And it is not affiliated with the NEA, and your dues then stay within the state. The dues are much less, and they can give you the same benefits as the trade organization, the NCAE. But I will tell you, John, in our charter school world, we have all kinds of charter school boards. So we would have some boards that might support left-leaning philosophy. I got a call back about a year ago of a charter school doing something a parent didn't like and wanted us to shut that charter school down. And I said, well, wait a minute. Charter schools are the epitome of like a free market system. And if you don't like what your charter school is doing, you leave. We close charter schools, the state closes them down because of impropriety in the maybe the funding. if their local government audit doesn't come back clean, if the performance of the children, they can't read, a large percentage of them are failing, then we close that charter school down. Parents close the charter school down by not attending. No one is forced to go to a charter school. So that's why it's important for a parent to, or the child's guardian, to really check out what is being taught, how is it being taught, what is the philosophy of teaching social studies, and then make a decision whether you want your child to attend there or not. I'm not going to tell you that all charter schools are not including critical race theory. And it's really, John, a larger issue. It's called critical theory. Now, I didn't have to take a class in it when I was in the university. When I graduated from the university, we won't say what year, okay? I don't want to give my age away. But back in the day, I didn't have a course called critical theory.
Yeah.
If you go today, in every university, there's classes now that teach what they call critical theory. And it's important for everyone to go back. And I mean, there's plenty of information on the internet on what it is. If you, I can give you some great links of some folks that explain it very clearly, but its roots are in Marxism. And you'll have critical gender theory. You can have critical race theory. It comes in lots of different flavors, but its roots are all what they call cultural Marxism. And we want to make sure that we recognize it, and we're not afraid of it, but we can point it out. And that's what's important to do nowadays in the world of education. That is one of the reasons why the lieutenant governor just recently pulled together a task force called Fairness and Accountability in the Classroom for Teachers and Students. It's called FACTS, FACTS, Fairness and Accountability in the Classroom for Teachers and Students. And this is a real source for parents that don't know where to go, or they found something in their classroom regarding transgender that they're really concerned about. I'll give you an example. In the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system, and in some other ones, you'll hear teachers call students now scholars. Now, when I taught school, I called them boys and girls, but now we call them scholars, and we don't want to classify them in any group. We'll let them decide what group they want to be in. Well, if you know,
scholars is a group.
Well, that's right, but it's a much larger group. So we don't have any subgroups. We don't want to have any subgroups. And so, again, that goes back to, having oppress and oppressors in groups, which, again, the roots go back to the Marxism. So we don't want to have any winners. We don't want to have any losers. We won't be the same. So a friend of mine, her little girl came home and was crying. She was in kindergarten because she wasn't sure if she was a boy or a girl. And so that mom and dad made a decision very quickly. The next day, they enrolled her in a different school. And so this task force that the lieutenant governor created is a place where parents can go to get information and to share their concerns and going, this is what's happening in my classroom. I don't understand it. We're seeing more and more of this across the state, and we need to speak up and say, no, I don't want that.
It came out of California in the 1970s and became a movement in the 80s. But it's part of this entire emphasis on race. Everything is race this, race that. I mean, if you can't disagree with anybody that has an opposing view without being called a racist.
Well, and that's where we need to go, have the courage and go, no, I'm not a racist. I just disagree with you. You're exactly right. People have now used the race card to they think they can just shut people up, but you don't have to receive that. And you are very, I'm very careful as far as when somebody asks me if I'm racist, I go, well, what have I done? And then it's go, no, you just don't know you are. So it's an argument you can't
Yeah,
win. You can't win it.
there's no winning when
And
when there's an answer for everything and the answer doesn't make sense.
well, and it doesn't agree with me. And then
Yeah.
if you don't agree with me, then I can call you a bully. I mean, it's the same kind of thing. If you don't agree with me, I have a liberal friend that, you know, the best way to convert people is be a friend. I have anyway, when we get to real serious points, or I ask her to give me examples, she'll look at me and go, "You're trying to bully me." And I just laugh. I go, "No, I'm not. I'm trying to have a conversation. But if you think I'm bullying you, then hey, how about those Panthers?" And I just change the subject, because if they're going to, you know, call you a bully or call you a racist, there's nothing. I mean, where are you going to go with that? But the truth is, you're not. You just disagree.
Well, it's there's a lot of us out here that don't believe that we're racist in any way. But this is a constant theme that we're hearing every day. Ron DeSantis down in Florida said that critical race theory is about teaching kids to hate each other. And reason is because it pits white against blacks, and this, you know, us against them mentality, and teaches them to hate their country because they have, the country has supposedly favored the white race in the course of its development over the years, and it's really destructive. I'm sorry to hear that that it was being, you know, that the NCAE was pushing that. I don't care what people's personal beliefs are. If they want to practice whatever they want to engage in outside of school or outside of their workplace, that's what living in a free country is all about. But when you start trying to shove it down people's throats and indoctrinate the children, that's a bridge too far for me.
Well, and it is for many parents too. We're seeing district schools for the first time. I think it was 4 years ago. We began to see district schools across the state lose enrollment. And we're seeing homeschool, we're seeing private schools, we're seeing charter schools, their enrollment explode. And like what I said, with 65,000 students on wait list, there is a demand to have education provided in different forms. And I think that's what we're seeing there, John. We're seeing parents go, "I don't like what's being taught in my school, and there are options. And I live in a free country."
Do you know Catherine Truitt?
I do know Superintendent Truitt.
She's a very nice person. I interviewed her when she was a candidate, and she's a very nice person. But she's got, you know, the superintendent of schools in this state is so hamstrung. You know, they and the Board of Education that she answers to. I just don't know how in the world she does it. I'll be honest with you.
Well, she is in a very difficult position because with the way that our state board consists of appointments, political appointments from Governor Cooper, and those appointments are for 8 years. And we all know elections have consequences. And so when Cooper was reelected, that automatically meant that the State Board of Education was going to continue their liberal bent. And so she does have to work with them, which makes it very difficult for her.
She has no authority.
Really? Not really. She manages the agency, the Department of Public Instruction, but under the auspices of the state, the Constitution in North Carolina, the State Board of Education is ultimately responsible. That is why the Charter School Advisory Board is just an advisory board. The Charter School Advisory Board cannot grant charters for the nonprofit boards to open. They approve them, the Charter School Advisory Board approves them, and then sends their recommendation over to the State Board of Education for a final approval.
This has been a very intriguing interview. education is the future of our country, and so many children, a good education is their way out of the where they were into the where they want to be. But when you've got so much division and in the country that's being foisted on us over racial issues, I just don't know. I'm really afraid for what all of this means for the country over the long term. But I guess we'll just have to play it by ear and see how that goes. Thank you very much for talking with me. I really do appreciate it. How's Tom doing?
He's doing well. Thank you for asking. Thank you. And
Tell him I said
just,
hello.
I will do that. Let me encourage you and the folks listening. There's a rising tide of African-American folks that don't buy into this critical race theory. In fact, I call it racial neurosis. It's what it is. And they're really trying to educate everyone, whites and blacks, that the roots are in cultural Marxism. You've got to have the oppressed group and the oppressor group, and then you understand what's happening in America. And so we'll continue to educate, we'll continue to build relationships, and just tell folks, I don't agree with you. I like you, but I don't agree with your philosophy. And let's talk about that. Let's talk about it in the marketplace of ideas. Let's not burn buildings down. No one wants to do that. And we've seen that with the organization, the Black Lives Matter organization. Behind it is cultural Marxism. It's not freedom.
Most certainly is not. And the future of the country is hanging in the balance with however this entire situation plays out. There's a lot of folks on the international scene with that go to Davos every year, and this World Economic Forum wants to, what they want to do with reimagining or changing the United States. The entire future of the country is at stake in all of these things, and we've got to have smart leaders. I'm afraid we don't, but it is what it is.
Well, it's been a pleasure to speak with you today.
It most certainly has been a pleasure for me as well. I thank you very much, and I wish you well. Come see us when you get a chance.
Will do. Thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.